Hello, my dear friends. Thank you for tuning into this latest episode of Love, Service, Wisdom with myself, Marissa Rada Wepner. This episode, I'm in conversation with Divneet Kaur Lall. She is an author. She has written Mastering Creation Using the Law of Unification. And in this episode, she shares all about what her theory of creation is, how we can cooperate with creation, what the law of unification is, and the different planes of mind and planes of existence. And she shares as well her own spiritual path and how she came to this knowing, this gnosis, and these laws and this awareness of how to live in harmony with the law of unification through her own history and background and life practices that has led to her life purpose. So I think you'll find this conversation an absolute delight with Divneet. She was joining me all the way from India, where she's from and where she lives. You can learn more about her and her work at her website. That's her name, divneetkaurlall.com. That's DivneetKaurlall.com. And she's got all kinds of programs, including the book that you can engage with her with. She's one of the things that I loved about her is she is so connected to her own practice and her own direct embodied experience as her reference point for what she's sharing in the world and what she's speaking of. It's not something that she's just parroting or replicating. It's what she has felt come through her own being. And so in that way, it's unique and special to just her, while it has parallels with so many other practices and traditions and can feel quite accessible. So again, her book is Mastering Creation Using the Law of Unification. Check her out and all of her work. We had this conversation back in mid-October. So it's been a few months. Here we are now. This is coming out the end of December 2021. And happy holidays, everyone. Happy winter solstice, which is tomorrow. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all of the events of celebration of this transition from darkness to light and into the new year. It has been a wild one indeed, 2021, which is wrapping up. And I hope you're all finding a little reprieve, a little repose, and some time to rest, as well as celebrate and enjoy the holidays with friends and family. That's my goal right now. And what have I got going on? Mostly focused the past few months on the launch of Journey Space, which I've mentioned maybe just the past couple episodes. It's the platform I've been co-creating with my partner, East Forest, and Louis Kofsky. That is a platform for musically guided, facilitated ceremonies online. And we had our first Journey Space journey early December. That was incredibly successful for all the participants who joined us. And we're going to have a second ceremony January 8th, so coming up in a couple weeks, and then February 12th. And we're growing into more affinity groups and integration and prep practices, and really trying, the main motivation is accessibility, where so many are newly interested or continually interested in psychedelics and the role that psychedelics or journeys might play in someone's own health, healing, transformation, and wanting to have guidance for that, and not maybe being able to travel to where a clinic is or a facilitator or a shaman or a guide is. You can do it from your own home, but have a guide with you, have the guidance of the musical ceremony, and have community that you're doing it with, and connection and community being an inclusive space for all, somewhere where we can come together and and be with others who are also on their own path of learning and self-discovery. It's so inspiring and supportive for our own selves to have that shared witness, particularly in the prep and integration spaces. And it's also something that people can join that includes any background, any affiliation, any lineage or belief system. All of it's welcome. It's not like there's one particular dogma or religious faith or way that you have to be or something that you have to prescribe to in order to try it out. It's open to everybody. We're not affiliated with any one religion or tradition or spiritual leader. And so it's, again, that inclusive, open, accessible space for all of us that are on the path of awakening, opening, feeling, curiosity, and growth. This is for you. You can learn more about Journey Space at journeyspace.com, about the upcoming journeys, about our mission and our vision. There's a whole list of FAQs. Is this right for you and how might it work in your own life? And feel free to reach out with questions too. You can just email to team@journeyspace.com, team@journeyspace.com. If you're maybe interested in hosting a journey or facilitating a journey or participating in a journey, reach out and we'll give you the information that you need for that. And as of right now, let's just enjoy this conversation with Divneet. Okay, welcome Divneet to Love, Service, Wisdom. It's a treat to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Radha.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm so excited about your upcoming book. It looks just fantastic. It looks fabulous. It seems like you've been living the truths that you've been writing about for a very long time. And that's how you came to your work. Is that true? Mastering creation is from your own self-study?
Yes, it is. And, I was even not aware about this work I'll be doing until I had this, kind of this spiritual experience. And it all led to the creation of this book and the creation of this Law of Unification in the book.
When you say you had a spiritual experience, what was that like for you?
Actually, it was the complete dissolution of the self. So I had been doing, meditation practices since I was a child. I was also reading a lot of spiritual books and texts. But
can I just pause you there? You said that when we were speaking before we started recording that you were raised in India, correct?
That's right.
And so did you have a particular teacher or lineage or type of meditation that you were doing?
In India, I used to practice, I have been doing the simple, basic meditation techniques. We do dhyan in India. So dhyan is just concentrating your attention on the breath, breathing techniques. So these kind of very simple and basic meditation practices, mostly the ones that yogis in India do. So I used to do those practices. I started them very early on when I was a child. In fact, even reading those books, those books, I just got them when I was a child. I just, started reading them, and there was these practices, yogic techniques, and I just started practicing them.
Did you find them at home, or there was an ashram nearby, or?
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you now, this was this one book which I found at my home. Maybe, someone read it at my home. I do not know. Even I do not remember the name and the author of the book because I was very young. I was around 10 or 11 years of age. And I started doing those simple practices like breathing techniques and, focusing your attention upon the breath. And when you talked about the guru, so for me, the guru has always been, I never had the physical teacher, never, it's always been the books, the text I read, the word I read. And there were these pointings in those books for sure, but I never understood the actual meaning until I had this experience. And because whatever I interpreted in the books was completely different than the experience. And, the same books when I read earlier, before the experience, and the same books when I read after the experience, it was a vast difference in how I was interpreting those things. Because now I was able to actually see what, the pointings were actually where they were going. Mm-hmm. And this is how it happened.
So you were young and you found some spiritual books at home, began doing the practices out of them. And then when was it that you had your spiritual awakening, as you describe it?
I had it like a few years ago. And what actually happened was I was meditating. So I was living a very normal life. Like I was having my job and I was doing, like normal people do, a very like material life, they say. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to balance it with my meditation techniques and with my interest in the spirituality. But I never put it on that, give it a lot of focus. I just thought that maybe I need to balance it with my life. And I did that. But during these meditation practices, so there was a time when I had this complete, like something just vanished, like went away. And I was not able to, understand what actually happened at that moment, because it was completely empty. And it was peaceful though, but it was like a void, empty feeling. And then there was this very, dark kind of feeling, but it was peaceful and very silent. And after a while, so after this time passed by, I do not really have a count of like months or I do not know what, but this brightness started coming in. And that was when this whole thing, the experience, actually, I felt that the experience was complete when that fullness came in. But until that period, it was very disorienting because I was not able to, like, mind was confused. Like there was this person who was doing everything. And now I was not able to, even do those meditation practices, but because it was like I was trying to force stillness with those meditation practices. Mm-hmm. And now it just came, it was like there when the person went away. So I was not even able to do those meditation practices at that time when that dissolution happened.
When the dissolution happened, were you in the middle of a practice or was it in the middle of everyday life?
No, I was not in the middle of everyday life. I was meditating, and it happened in like a moment, just in a second, something just went away and it was gone.
Like your sense of self went away.
Yeah, I just, I mean, I can't even say. It was very, very, it was also scary for a while because we cannot even explain these things in words. Even those texts I used to read and those, books, they say this happens. I'm saying it happened, but the experience cannot be explained. So yeah, and at that moment, I was not aware that my sense of self went away. What I was able to say was that something has gone. Like it's like, there is this, if I have to describe it suppose there is this bottle filled with some water or something, and then suddenly you just suck that water out of it, and then it just becomes empty. It was like that.
It reminds me of like the veil of Maya disappearing and you were simply Turiya or Brahman or the Absolute, right? Or Atman.
Yes, but at that moment, I would not say I was the Absolute. That was the moment when just the person went away. So that that sense of absolute thing came when this brightness came in. So for me, it kind of happened in stages, I would say. It did not happen in that, the whole thing did not happen in one process. Like that sense of absolute thing did not came at that very moment. It came after a while when then brightness started coming in. So, yeah.
And so in your practice too, it sounds like you weren't being led by a teacher. You didn't have like an end goal destination that you were trying to achieve. You were simply doing sadhana, you were just practicing what you'd been practicing for a while when, like you described, the lid came off.
That's right. But there was this urge, I always had this very, urge was there. I would not say it was not there. It was there since the very beginning, I would say, as even when I was a child, like to know this, to know something, like what is like behind the scenes or something like that. So I was searching for something, but I had no idea what I was searching for.
Right.
So
There was a sense of seeking, but not knowing like I'm going to get here. I want
exactly.
to experience. I want to understand what is out
That's
there.
right.
I'm feeling a pull, but I don't know even really towards what.
Exactly, absolutely. This was the thing. Like, I was feeling that I was searching something, but I did not know what. I was reading those books. I had no idea like where I was going, but yeah, I was doing that because of this, pull or this desire, this urge, which was so. But for a while, I kind of, as I told you, there was this urge. But for a while, when we just grow up, we usually, it happens with us, we start giving less attention to our spiritual activities, and it happened with me as well. So I just kind of put it on a back seat for a while, and that was the time when this urge even got stronger inside me. And after that, like after a while, I had to give it attention because it was growing. I knew it was growing. The more I was trying to, put it on a backseat, or I used to get more invested in the material world, the more it was growing. So it happened. And so and that was the time when I just felt that, powerful urge. And I just started spending more time in solitude because of this. So I just thought that I have to, pursue it for a while, or maybe I have to give this attention.
And then you had this experience and you came down from it. And then was the question, what was that? What happened to me?
That's right. So I could not understand it, in the first go, what happened. So for a while, the mind was confused, because now the mind was actually being operated by that person, the person that went away. So there was this confusion, like what happened. But that confusion remained until, until that fullness, that brightness came in. And once that was there, it was like there was this knowing. Now there was the sense of, it was just, I just knew. It was like the questions just went away. The questions dropped away. So now
Like
I could
like a
not
gnosis,
ask,
right? Gnosis.
right. So you just kind of get a it's just you get an understanding, a knowing that about something. You do not ask any more questions then. It was like that after that brightness came in.
And then the knowing was what? The law of unification?
No. So the knowing was that, I was able to witness it. I could not even tell you what the knowing was. It was more like, this is the ultimate truth. Like, this separation which we all experience is actually not there. And this a field, a field of bright light, which is covering everything, is all it is. Because I was able to witness it, and even in the things, they just started appearing more bright, not just, people, but even the things, even the objects started appearing more bright, everything. So it was all there. But this law of unification was, during this time, it just, while the whole thing happened, these ideas, this force was, kind of hitting me with these ideas. And these ideas were something I just felt that I kind of tapped into this plane, which is which I call the idea mind, and which is actually a provider of all the ideas, or everything we have to do in this world, or everything we have to work upon. So these ideas started coming in, and I had to work upon those ideas. I started researching. I used to do it earlier. I was a person who used to read a lot, research a lot, read about consciousness and all these things. But that was the moment when suddenly these ideas about creator gods and these mythologies, the motives of creator gods that are found in mythologies started hitting me, and I started researching upon them. And this is how this law of unification happened. Like, it just came into existence, and I had to write this book. Now, again, I was not an author. Like, I just had to do it. I do not know why, but there was this force which was kind of, asking me to do it, and I had to do it. I had to work upon that.
Are you familiar with the idea of the muse?
Muse, I'm not sure.
The muse, or even like a genius, is like, in creativity, it can be described as the idea, the inspiration that comes to you, that whispers to you, that wants to flow through you, that you're almost like channeling from this idea that came from nowhere, that you want to bring into the world.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got that. I got your point. Yeah, it can be. But I think muse, we can say that. So it's more like the idea mind is something, it's more like, when any creation is brought into existence, into the material world, it just comes from that void, that space. So even when a genius or even when a creator brings the creations into the world, we have heard so many interviews and read their papers where they have said that they did not bring that creation or creativity or that, whatever invention they did or whatever thing they created, it did not come from their mind, from their rational mind.
Right.
It came to them, the idea came to them when they were, relaxing, or maybe they were sleeping, maybe through a dream, through a vision. And then they used their mind, they worked upon that idea and created that creation. And that is what is this law of unification, like how we can unify the idea mind and our, rational mind, this human mind. And this unification can actually help us bringing those higher levels of creations into the world and bringing that higher levels of consciousness into the world by giving it form through these new creations.
So it's like the idea, the inspiration comes, and then the law of unification would be, how do I bring it into form?
Right. And also, in order to, tap into that inspiration, like where this inspiration is, because we do not get inspired. Not everyone gets inspired. We also need to tap into that idea mind from where we can get the ideas. So law of unification is actually the whole process. Like book mastering creation actually gives the whole technique of how we can do that. Because, our consciousness, it is more like drawn towards so many things, so many outer influences in the world, that we are just not able to connect with those higher levels of consciousness where those ideas can come from, and we can create them or give them form in this world, on this planet. So first, we need to learn how to actually overcome those lower levels of forces of consciousness which are binding us to these lower levels, or which are not allowing us to connect with those higher levels.
Right, like distractions. They're keeping your attention focused externally. And it sounds like you have a history where you're drawing on your yogic practices. And I read in your bio also that you draw inspiration from Quetzalcoatl. And I'm really curious about your connection to him and that energy and how that informs your work.
Radha, I really do not know. I have never read about Quetzalcoatl earlier. I have never done that. And I do not know where it came from. But I just started researching about these creator gods, and after this experience, earlier I had never had any connection with creator gods. I have read the text that are mostly the texts which I have read, like before this experience, they were mostly, those holy texts, holy spiritual books, and some other spiritual books as well. But this came to me as a surprise. Like, someone asks me where did, if I have read them or if I have worked upon them earlier, no, I haven't. It just came to me, this idea somehow, and I had to. So I just researched, and I found this law of unification in these motifs of Quetzalcoatl and Isis. So they are depicted with a bird or an eagle, and the combination of bird or an eagle and then this reptile or a snake. So mostly these creator gods, not just Isis or Quetzalcoatl, there are other creator gods as well in other mythologies, which are depicted in the similar manner. And what they describe, this bird and eagle is actually representing the higher levels of consciousness, the idea mind. And then this, snake or the reptile is representing the lower levels of consciousness, that is our mind. And similar kind of combination is observed in how geniuses create, as I have already discussed. And then there is another motif, which is, another statue which is found in a museum in the US, which is again where now this bird or the eagle, they are shown fighting with each other, with, the snake or the reptile. Mm-hmm. So it's like when the human mind rejects the ideas which come from the higher levels of consciousness, which happens when we are so attached to those lower levels of consciousness, or when we are under that influence of lower levels of consciousness. So it again, it's the theory of creation. So the book is actually, describing this theory of creation, where how the consciousness evolves and how we can actually cooperate with it in evolving our lives and evolving our planet and reach that highest level of consciousness.
Amazing. Yeah, beautiful. And so like we were describing with the eagle and the snake, with Quetzalcoatl, he's a deity that is the plumed serpent. So it's that unification, like you keep speaking to, of the higher mind and the lower mind together, so that you're living, excuse me, in balance, or as a creator in a way yourself.
That's right. So it's more like, because, we say that we create our reality, but a lot of time we do not even know, we are not even conscious, or we are not even aware what we are creating. So this law of unification can help us become more aware of the creations, or what are we creating into the world. Even if we are creating our lives, are we creating it as per our individual dharma, like our highest duty or our highest purpose in this world? Or are we just following what other people are doing? Because it happens a lot of times we just get deviated from our highest duty in this world, or our highest path, or our individual dharma. And that is what brings in unfulfillment into our lives. So there is this beautiful quote in the verse in Bhagavad Gita, which says it's better to strive in one's own dharma than to succeed in another's dharma.
That's my favorite quote from the Bhagavad Gita. I say that quote all of the time. It's my favorite quote.
Right. And I have this this is also, I have included it in mastering creation using the law of unification as well. And this is what we are doing, And
wouldn't you say, though, in lines with that, I think, a lot of folks get hung up on living their dharma because they're afraid they won't be accepted, or people will think that they're weird or strange, or how do I make a living doing that?
Absolutely. And, I was doing the same thing. Like somehow I was keeping those things, that interest I had, although there was the strong urge, but I was keeping it. I, for a while, just kept it on a back seat. And I just thought, no, I don't, I'll just put my attention to this material world for a while. And it happens a lot of times. We all do that. And that is what brings in that unfulfillment. Even if, we achieve success in those things, mm-hmm. After a while, we are going to feel that emptiness, or that feeling of like there is something lacking. So we need something to live a fulfilling life.
So would you say if someone out there right now that's listening and they feel unfulfilled in their life, would that be a signal to them that they're not living in line with their life's purpose, so their dharma?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if there is unfulfillment, it's like the best kind of thing that can happen to a person, because that means at least they are aware that they are unfulfilled. And if they are aware that they are unfulfilled, they can use that even that little awareness to actually, connect with those higher levels and to increase their awareness, to reach those higher levels where they can connect with their own purpose. So it's absolutely, this is true.
Mm-hmm.
I have read so many stories. Even, there was this book by, I recently also shared it with someone. And this is a UN Secretary General who was, living a very successful life. But when we read their, innermost thoughts in their autobiographies or maybe their books which they write, we actually see, we can see how unfulfilled their lives are. And there are a lot of things that are lacking. And the reason is this, that there are so many people in this world who do not walk that path, which can actually help them evolve and make them live those fulfilling lives. And not just their lives. If we follow our individual dharmas, it can in turn help so many people around us, because in a way we are all connected, and one person not following their own individual dharma is like, we just kind of act as an obstacle in the functioning of the whole. Mm-hmm. And we kind of prevent that evolution which has to happen on the planet. Mm-hmm. So it's
Would you say if someone was feeling unfulfilled, that the suggestion wouldn't necessarily be, well, then you need to know what your passion is, or you need to know what your dharma is and begin to act on it? You could maybe say, begin these practices and your dharma will be revealed to you, or the idea mind will open to you and you'll know which direction to take.
See, what I have done, this book, which I have written, Mastering Creation Using the Law of Unification, is actually, it is a combination of theory and practices. And it just came out not just because of those ideas, but I think the experiences I had and whatever led me to those experiences. So I have shared everything that actually led me to that place, that, figuring out my dharma, or maybe that dissolution. So all those practices and steps which made me reach that destination is shared in that book. And yes, there are certain practices, because I have used them and I think they work, especially when I talk about there are certain practices like, using your or exercising your willpower, which can help us increase or gain some control over our lower impulses, because of which we can discriminate or attain that power of discernment, that so that we can, we are able to discern that whatever life we are creating or whatever path we are following, is it based upon those lower levels of consciousness? Is it based upon, those attachments, or just because other people are doing it? Or is it truly my purpose here in this world? Or if I'm following that individual dharma or not? So yes, if we can, increase our awareness, definitely it improves our discernment, and it really helps on that path to reach that, idea mind.
Mm-hmm. So discernment, I hear you say, is really important, or willpower is important, where you might have habits and reactions and patterns or ways of dissociating or masking. And intuitively or inside, there might be a voice that might say, you know what, don't do that, or make sure you do this. And it's following that urge that's a little bit harder to do, that will be better for you.
That's so true. And we even do not hear that voice. And the reason, because of this noise, because our consciousness, again, it's drawn towards that outer noise. And how can we control that? How can we, not let it go there, and instead sit there inside and listen to that voice? And that's the way we can do it, using that willpower, by just exercising it. And just some basic practices, if we can do daily, can help us, increase that awareness and help us gain that control. And willpower is necessary for this starting stage, for just, to get on to reach a particular, to just, overcome a particular level of stage. It's just necessary to do that through
in
that.
the beginning.
Yes, in the beginning.
And it sounds like
definitely.
even before that, what you're saying is you have to be able to reduce the noise in order to hear the discerning voice. So first
That's
step
right.
would be practices or even ways to set up your life that you're reducing the input, maybe less time on social media or less time with the news, more time in nature, time quiet on your mat, things that help you to focus your mind also.
Right. So solitude is also a part of these practices. Like I have also included solitude, because I think that really helps us in, getting in touch with that inner voice, which we are talking about. And because a lot of time, there was this, people ask me about how, if we talk about this meditation, even if people are not doing meditation, so there are a lot of people who cannot understand what meditation actually is. So they do not know, like if we talk to them, this just meditate, they will be like, what do we have to actually do? We do not know. So simply, even if you're not meditating, just spend time in solitude, because in a way, meditation is just connecting with your, that true self. And instead of sitting there, instead of trying to meditate, if you can just sit in stillness, or just, spend time in solitude to start with, I think that would work well, especially in our times when there is so much distraction that we do not have time to spend in solitude at all.
Yeah, and so solitude could even look like I'm at home, I'm by myself, the TV's off, I'm not listening to a podcast, I don't have my phone in my pocket, and I'm maybe even cooking dinner, I'm doing something, but I'm doing it without those external inputs on.
Absolutely, that's right. Like you do not need any noise. So solitude means that you have to cut down everything. So when you're spending time with yourself, you just need to be with yourself. Do not even use, I think I usually say, you can keep those checks with you, which you think are pointing you towards something, even when you are in solitude, which can help you, to self-inquire, or to ponder over some thoughts, because thoughts come in when we are in solitude. But there are certain texts or certain books which can help us to actually do that self-inquiry, or ponder over things, and which can help us gain insight into that truth.
So you would suggest reading as well, reading some inspiring or spiritual texts?
Absolutely, we can use them, but not that social media or television. They are going to add to that noise again. And the influence is very, we just cannot get over that influence, because those things come into our lives through these social media, or maybe through television, repetitively. And they kind of become our conditioning, and then we do not even know that if it's our, they just build up a belief system in us, and we do not know if they are
conditioned. We're incredibly
Exactly.
conditioned into that hypnotic trance where you're right. You don't even realize it's the air that you're breathing. It's like being in LA and there's always smog and fog and it's never lifted. And you don't know beyond that are trees and mountains and the ocean because it hasn't ever lifted.
So true. Yes, absolutely. Until we just get rid of them, we'll not know the difference.
And how would you say that your life has changed since living by this law of unification?
A lot of things have changed. The first thing was like I. I'm just there is this, when earlier I was a person like who used to plan a lot, like this is what we need to do, this is what I'm going to do. And with that dissolution, the first thing which came was I was not able to, because immediately when that dissolution happened, I was not able to, look into like the future. For a while it was very difficult for me to, have this. Now I can plan like the little things like tomorrow a little bit, but still that planning thing, it just went away. If things just started coming in more spontaneously, even when I try to do that, it just feels very, it feels like I'm just forcing something into my life. So that is something which just went away.
And so you're living way more now present moment of what's arising, what comes up, and trusting that versus projecting into the future and making plans.
That's true. And even, it is like, even when I try to do that, it just feels like it's very difficult for me now to do that. Like, even if I try, I would be doing this after 1 year. I cannot do that. It just feels impossible. I do not know how it happened. After that dissolution, it just kind of felt like that was not even me who was doing that planning and everything.
So how does it feel now to live just in the present moment?
The best thing is that it feels very light. Like it's like something you just feel like there was this burden because we live like that. We have to do this, we have to do that, and that is not even needed. Life, even if we are not planning, even if we are not thinking about things, what is gonna come tomorrow, life still moves on. Everything just happens automatically. We think we are doing it, like that person gets so attached to the things. It just feels if the person will not plan for 5 years, maybe the person will not be able to survive for 5 years. But that's not truth. Like that's not the truth. Life just flows, and it flows very effortlessly if we just kind of I would say it's because if that dissolution doesn't happen, the person needs to have this surrender into this way of living so that can experience it. But yeah, it's really difficult. I do not even tell people to do that because I know how difficult it can be without that dissolution. Because until that dissolution can happen, we can all tell people to do that, but it gets really difficult to actually do that without that person going away, because the person every time it will just try to kind of control or take over the things. Like no, it will come up again and again until that dissolution happens.
Yeah.
But still,
go ahead.
Yes, I was saying, but still what we can try is just we can, so that is the reason I even do not talk about this surrender thing. Even I haven't talked about the surrender in mastering creation using the law of unification, because I feel that it's very difficult for people to do that. So I try to use this technique of the willpower and connecting with that higher levels of consciousness instead of surrendering, because that is something I just feel it comes at a very later stage when people can actually do that.
Yes, surrender is a high level skill to embody because, like you're saying,
right.
It brings up a lot of fear. I mean, we've been so heavily conditioned that people think, well, if I don't plan or if I don't control, what will happen? Or I won't be taken care of, or I won't XXX. And so it's driven by fear, the inability to surrender. And it's only once you've fully experienced for yourself and know in a direct experience way that you are connected, that you can that this oneness is there, that you can then trust that it will never go away because you actually lived it.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And even, this is so strong. Our identity, it's so strong. And the impact of identity on our mind is even stronger because even when that dissolution happens, that mind still tries to, try to control things because it so gets habitual with all those things. But because when the person is not there, it's not able to do that. But for a while, like we say, that momentum remains, like after something is moving in that particular manner, but still the thing is gone or has stopped, but the momentum is still there, and it takes time to actually fully trust or fully surrender into it. So it's a very, yes, as you said, it's a very high level skill, and we really need to start with some basic techniques on this path.
Yeah, you can't I don't think you can fake surrendering.
That's right. True. Absolutely. We cannot.
When in regards to that, it's bringing to mind too this idea that I sometimes play with myself of saying yes. Like there's the surrender experiment by I'm going to forget his name, Michael. I can't remember his last name, but he wrote The Untethered Soul also. But the Surrender Experiment is his book on saying yes to everything that came into his life, even if his mind didn't think that it was an actual yes for him. And he would say yes to whatever is asked to him, whatever presented itself, whatever opportunity was there, as a way to surrender. Do you find that you do that too? Or is that a part of it, that you have a renewed ability to say yes, even if your thinking mind doesn't quite know or might disagree?
Radha, I would say this is a, it's not a very, I would not answer it in a yes or a no thing, because this is something I do not even suggest people to do, because before the experience, if I would be saying yes to everything, then my life would be a heck. I mean, I could not have done that, because when I talk about this discernment, there are things in this world where we really have to say no to. Like if I'm saying I have to, when we are trying to spend time in solitude, we actually are saying no to those influences which are coming from lower levels of consciousness.
Right.
We are saying no to the television or the social media. So we have to do that. But when the enlightened people write the books about surrender experience, I think they write it from the perspective when they actually reach that stage where they were able to say yes to all that experience which was coming into their life. Like if I talk about this, I would say yes. Now it's easier for me to say yes, because I know that life is just flowing through me now.
Yeah, you're right. So the first step, again, is the discernment, that you have to sort of clean and clear until the field and remove the things that are distractions, or remove the things that aren't serving you, or remove the things that aren't influences that you would like anymore. And then once you've actually said no to a lot of things, then it's possible to say yes.
Right now, like when the person knows that the things that are flowing in life, or that the person has actually become that vessel, and now those things are just flowing, that is the time when we can actually surrender. So
okay, that makes sense. Thank you for talking that out with me. Well, anything else about your book that you would like to share, or the work that you're doing? Do you have trainings that folks could take with you as well?
I have just started with this, and while I was writing this book, this COVID situation came up, and I was not able to spread the word at that time. So now I'm doing this. I'm just trying to, spreading the word using these podcasts. I was also not aware how to do that, because everything just happened, and I was kind of just following whatever was coming up. So I was writing, and then I started tried to spread the word. I had no idea how to do that. So now I'm doing it through podcasts. And I have also started this program, the Law of Unification Program on the website. Not just started, but I would be doing it soon, because there were a few readers who actually, told me that the book is they have gone through the book, but they want to deepen that inquiry, or they have those questions which they would like to ask, or they would like to do those practices and deepen those things. So how can they do that? So I thought that maybe I should start with this program. So I have just, we are just going to launch it, but maybe we will be doing it next year in 2022, maybe in spring. I would be trying to start it at that moment, because things are just opening up, and I just feel that maybe that would be the best time. So let's see. There is this page on the website where people can join in the wait list if they want to deeper, and if they have read the book and they just want to go deeper into this law of unification, and then we can go ahead with it.
Yeah, I'll link to your website in the show notes, but essentially it's your name, Divneet Kaur. How do you say your middle name? Or is it part of your last name?
Yeah, it's divneetkaurlall.com.
Kaurlall. Yeah, divneetkaurlall.com. /programs is where what you're talking about is. And so it sounds like you're in the act of creation right now, because people are wanting to go deeper with you. People want to have access to ask you questions or have some guidance, and you'll be bringing that forward next year.
Yes, I think I'll have to, if people will need it, then I'll have to do that. I'm more like, now I'm in a position that I have to say yes to these things, especially. So we will be doing that. So let's see how it goes. And there was also, when this mastering creation using the law of unification was being created, or I was, writing the book. So there was this another thing which I haven't discussed, but again, because you said you have read Bhagavad Gita, that is why you said that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there is this upright tree, this upward down facing tree, which is, talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, which is also part of the mastering creation using the law of unification. And this is the similar kind of motive, again, that the creators, that describes the work of the creators, which is like the tree is upside down, and the fruits are at a lower level, and the root is at a higher level, and the roots again depicting that idea mind, and the fruits which are creations which we can bring into the world. So when creators, they're actually bringing in the fruits into the world, they do not have to get attached to those fruits, because if they do that, they'll not be able to get in touch with the roots again. They'll not be able to tap into that idea mind again. So there is this feeling of they must have this detachment with, their fruits of creation, whatever fruits they are bringing into the world, so that they can tap into that idea mind again. Because once we get attached to that, those fruits or maybe those creations we bring into the world, then again, that connection it just breaks. It just, we cannot tap into that again.
It's sort of the idea of renewal, where you've brought something into the world, and if you stay attached to, well, this is the thing I do, or this is what I offer, or this is the one thing that I need to keep focusing on, the longer that you do that, you're not renewing ideas or receiving new inspiration, and it actually might lead towards stagnation.
That's right. And, this is like stagnation, and this is what stops the evolution too. Even on our spiritual journey, even if we, attain a certain stage, we never can say this is our journey is finished. We never can say that, even when we experience it, because that unfolding, it just keeps on happening in a way maybe in a way of offering to the world, maybe in any other form. So we have to we have to have that sense of, detachment. And that is what creators do.
Yeah, I think that's a great inquiry for people to ask themselves is, what in my life have I brought into the world that I could let go of, that's had its time, but something new wants to come through now?
That's why it's so true, so true. We can do that. And I think this is a beautiful, you just, gave a beautiful question for self-inquiry.
Yeah. What would you say?
Because it's so important to, ask the right questions.
Yeah, the right questions and to self-reflect, like you were pointing to even just time and solitude with yourself. And yoga, I mean, it's often described as self-awakening or self-discovery, and even just the yogic practices, like the way that I live and I teach them, they're always ways for me to get to know myself better.
That's right.
And help me to remove the barriers that I have to knowing myself. And it's a continual process that I'm always refreshing, because being in the world, you're accumulating karmas constantly too. Or I have, my different samskaras that I still are my shadow and I'm not aware of. And it's like peeling back layers of an onion to go deeper and deeper.
That's so true, so true. This is so true. I also talk about these layers, and when we have these beliefs which we form, because this is also, again, the part of those lower levels of consciousness. And if they are formed uninquired, they are like the outermost layers, and which we can remove them easily. So, yeah.
Well, for those, again, that are listening, would you have any final messages or anything that you'd want to say to them, to the person who's feeling that lack of fulfillment and a little afraid or a little uncertain about how to begin changing? What would you say?
I think because the times we are living in, it's not very difficult to attain this heightened level of awareness, because earlier it was although difficult, but right now it's easy. If I talk about myself, I would say I did not even do those practices to a very advanced level. I just started from a very basic level, and I did not even reach those advanced levels. And we just get them easily in these times, maybe because the distractions are more. And if we can put in a little bit of effort, it will be easily we can get that. And even the fulfillment we can get easily. So we do not have to, it's just a little bit of effort that would take us there. And if we have that aspiration, we can all reach that stage.
So it's easier than you think it might be. It's not going to require a ton of austerities, at least not in the beginning. And maybe if you begin with some simple practices or easy ways to alter your daily life and daily flow, stuff will start to shift.
It's easier. If I talk about the time we are investing it. So, because, earlier times, the Indian yogis or people who used to try these things, they were doing quite severe practices, and they never used to there were a lot of people who used to say, like, maybe we'll get it in another lifetime or so. But right now, it's easier because people are getting aware and they are getting awakened as well. A lot of people talk about it. And also the time taken, like if people were, spending 100 years and doing those practices, now we do not need those 100 years. The reason is it's like, if I give you an example here. So if we have if we go to gym and use more weights, we can train our muscles faster as compared to when we use less weight. So it's similarly, right now the distractions are more. Those forces outside, they have increased. And because this amount is more, now the time taken to do those things, to work those things, will be less. the effort will be required, but it would not be that much. It would be, I just feel it's easier now. And the time is also like, the less time is required as compared to the older times.
Well, that's a great analogy. That really helps to make it clear that if you put in a little bit of effort now, because you're battling against pretty extreme outside forces,
Exactly.
it will help you quicker to shift and change, and then more resources start to come your way.
That's true. And the suffering and pain we experience, this is also, it's more like when the consciousness is actually giving us, providing us this pain or suffering, and then the amounts are increased. The reason is because it wants to evolve through us. And if we can just be aware of that evolution and put in that little bit of effort and move according to that consciousness, in accordance with that consciousness, we would be able to do that. We would be able to evolve and reach those levels.
Got it. I love it. I love your work, and it's so inspiring that you have your new work, Mastering Creation, your book. I'm sure it's available right on Amazon and all the sites people could get it.
Yes, it's available on Amazon, and also on my website, we have a link, like we have a button order the book where they can find links to other retailers as well.
Okay, great. Other, of course, would be nice. Other retailers besides Amazon too, or your local bookstore, which is wonderful. A great place to pick up things. Well, thank you, Divneet, for your time. It's been wonderful connecting with you and hearing more about your story and the gifts that you're giving to the world right now. It's needed now more than ever. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Radha. I really enjoyed our talk. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.